guys, welcome back to my channel for another What's for Dinner video. This week I kept it super simple, stuck to my meal plan, and cleared some stuff out that needed to be used up in my freezer mostly, but a few pantry items. I think our winner dinner for the week was definitely the pesto chicken. Oh my gosh, that was so good. Everyone absolutely loved it. I think the game changer for that, because I've made pesto chicken before, but the thing that made this stick out so much was the homemade pesto. That was my mom's homemade pesto, and it is phenomenal. So much better than anything you're gonna buy in the grocery store. Anyway, enough chatting. Let's jump in and see what I cooked this week. Alright, so the week kicked off with that pesto chicken I just mentioned when I was opening the video. This was so good, and like I said, the difference was definitely in the pesto. So I started off by just cooking some thinly sliced chicken breasts. I just put a little bit of salt and pepper on them. I didn't need anything much because we're going to top this with pesto, and that is just packed full of flavor. I did want to start these off in the skillet because I decided that I wanted a little bit of color on them. You know, when you brown something in a skillet, it adds an extra layer of flavor, and I really wanted that because I feel like when you just bake chicken in the oven, it's good, but it's still kind of bland. It's missing something. Cooking it in the skillet, getting that bit of color on it just adds so much more to any chicken dish. So I'm not worried about cooking the chicken all the way through. In fact, I know I did not cook it all the way through. I'm just looking to get some color on the outside. So I put a little bit of olive oil in the bottom of the skillet, and then I have this on a pretty high heat, not as high as it'll go, but it's up there, you know, medium high. And I am just going to let it cook for a few minutes on each side just to develop that color and that flavor. Now, once that's done, I'm gonna pull the chicken off and place it in a baking dish. I did do this in 2 batches because I'm looking for color on the chicken. I wanted to be very careful and not overcrowd my pan. When you overcrowd it, it causes a lot of steam and a lot of juice in the pan, and what happens is you end up boiling and steaming the chicken instead of getting that sear that we're looking for. So I made sure and kept my pan, you know, everything was spaced out nicely. So once I am done browning this chicken and putting it in the baking dish, I'm going to go ahead and just spread some pesto on the top. This is pesto, like I said, my mom made. She grows her own basil and everything. Then she makes it and she freezes it. And in case you didn't know, pesto freezes really well. You know, she uses the vacuum sealer bags and the whole bit. This stuff lasts for a long time in your freezer, and it's a really great way to use up basil if you are growing a whole lot of it. And the flavor, so much better than the store-bought stuff. So I just topped the chicken with the pesto, popped it in a 350-degree oven, and just let it hang out in there for about probably 15 minutes or so. So while that is doing its thing, I have a little bit of olive oil in a pan, and I added a little bit of a little bit of pesto and some heavy whipping cream. And I'm just gonna let those kind of simmer together on the stove. What happens is, as the heavy cream simmers, the water content in it starts to evaporate out, it thickens up. So we're gonna get a really thick, rich pesto gravy, essentially. I'm also gonna go ahead and pull my chicken out of the oven and top it with a little bit of whole milk mozzarella cheese and some fresh sliced tomatoes. And then I'm going to pop it back in the oven just long enough to melt the cheese, about less than 10 minutes. I did only put the cheese on 2 pieces of chicken because my oldest son, if you've watched my channel, does not like cheese. I only put tomatoes on his, and I left 2 of those pieces of chicken just naked so that they could be used for something else. I just served all of this on top of a bed of leftover mashed potatoes from the night before. So amazing. If you've not tried any kind of basil pesto with potatoes, wow, that was incredible. So on to the next night, I had the leftover pesto chicken. I wanted to use it, so I'm going to serve it with some fresh pasta, some fresh ravioli that I bought at the grocery store. I also wanted to make some caprese salad. So I have this whole milk mozzarella. It comes pre-sliced. I picked this up at Sam's Club. I put a little bit of oil in the bottom of my dish, and then I'm putting that fresh mozzarella on top. I will go ahead and season that with some salt and pepper. Fresh mozzarella, it tastes great. I love the flavor of it, but it does need a little bit something extra. So I do like to season it with especially pepper, but a little bit of salt. Then I'm going to top it with some fresh sliced tomatoes. I'm going to salt the top of those tomatoes as well. What happens is when you salt the tomatoes, it helps pull the moisture out, the liquid out. And for me, basically that's going to turn into like a dressing for this. I don't use balsamic glaze or anything like restaurants do because my husband does not like it. So we keep this nice and simple. It's just going to be olive oil, whole milk, mozzarella cheese, salt, pepper, tomatoes, and I'm going to chiffonade on some fresh basil and just sprinkle that over the top. That is it. It is so, so good though because it has such a nice, fresh flavor to it. It's really, really great, especially serving it with something heavy like a pasta. Speaking of the pasta, once I am done making this caprese salad, I had a little bit of some sauce that came with the fresh pasta when I bought it at the store. It was a buy one, get one free thing, but it was a small container, so I decided it wasn't going to be enough for all of us. I'm going to whip up a little homemade sauce. I had some sun-dried tomatoes and olive oil in my fridge that I need to use. They've just been hanging out in there for a little while. So I went ahead and took some of those out and threw them in a skillet. The great thing about those is they are soaked in olive oil. I didn't have to add anything else. They come with the oil, so I'm essentially using up everything in this jar. I let those just kind of warm up a little bit because the oil solidifies in the refrigerator. And then I'm going to throw in a little bit of garlic because this is Italian food. You got to have some garlic, right? We're going to just saute that just for a short period of time, enough for the flavor to really kind of come out of the garlic and infuse the oil and the tomatoes, so a minute or less. And then we're going to add in some heavy whipping cream and a little bit of Parmesan cheese, some fresh cracked black pepper, and you can add in salt too. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It depends on how salty I think it's going to be. Parmesan cheese has a lot of salt in it, things like that. So you want to be cautious adding too much salt. You can always add more later once you serve it, but you can't take it back out. But that's all I'm going to add in this dish. It doesn't need a whole lot. Those sun-dried tomatoes bring a really big burst of flavor. So good. And I just poured it on top of my ravioli. It was just a basil cheese ravioli, and I served it with a caprese. My husband and my son ate the chicken. It was a fantastic meal. So I know I said the pesto chicken was the favorite of the week, and I think it was, but this one might have actually tied. I don't know. This was so delicious. So I have a pork tenderloin here. I bought this on clearance. It was one of those pre-seasoned ones. It had steakhouse seasoning and chopped bacon, but all of the bacon had settled at one end of the package by the time I bought it. So I knew once I cooked it, I was just going to be taking those bacon pieces off, which is exactly what I did. There's a few stragglers that are still on the cutting board, but I put most of them back in the package. We don't need them. You could use just a regular plain pork tenderloin for this, and that'd be even better. This is just what I had, and I wanted to use it up. By the time I was done, I had pretty much rubbed most of that steakhouse seasoning off as well. I went ahead and sliced this up into little medallions. They're about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches thick, and I'm going to place those off to the side. You can also see on my counter I have a package of bacon, so you know this is going to be delicious. Now, when I watched somebody do this originally on YouTube, they cut their bacon in half and it wrapped around their little pork tenderloin medallions perfectly, which is exactly what I tried to do. There I am, cutting the bacon in half. Apparently, my little pork tenderloin medallions are a lot bigger than theirs. This would not wrap around one of my little medallions. I ended up having to use essentially an entire piece of bacon. So, lesson learned, measure before you cut. I just kind of was doing exactly what I saw on TV and not even thinking about it. And then my bacon was too short. Not a big deal. I mean, I just wrapped the other half of the bacon around it and it worked out perfectly. But it would have been better if it was just one whole piece of bacon. Now, I am not using a toothpick in these or anything. My bacon held on perfectly fine. I didn't have any issues. If you would like to, go ahead and pin this with a toothpick so your bacon does not come undone. There's always the chance that could happen. But I didn't have any problem at all. Now, as I had said, this was originally a steakhouse seasoned pork tenderloin, which is a great seasoning. If you've got a plain pork tenderloin, you can use whatever seasoning you want. Steakhouse would be great. I'm going to add a little bit of seasoning to these. I'm going to use Kinder's The Blend, which is salt, pepper, and garlic powder. Then I am also going to add in just the tiniest bit of Kinder's wood-fired garlic seasoning. If you haven't tried that seasoning, it's fantastic. It has so much flavor, but go light. That stuff is so strong. It's great. I use it all the time, but man, it is stout. So just be cautious with it because that smoked flavor will really take over and become just overbearing. All right, so I have a skillet that's heated up on my stove top with a little bit of olive oil in the bottom, and I am just placing those little medallions in there. I've got the heat up probably like medium high. What we're looking to do is sear the outside of these. We're not going to cook them all the way through. They're going to go in the oven for that. We're just developing some color and some flavor on the stovetop, which is exactly what I did with the chicken in the previous dish. You know, when you find something that works. So we're just going to cook these for about 3 minutes on each side. It gives us a beautiful amount of color on this pork, which is exactly what it needs to develop some extra flavor. Flip it over to the other side and then take it off and put it on a cookie sheet.
I'm gonna let the sun shine in today. I'm trying to make this darkness go away. I'll paint with colors and I'll sing until my lungs give out. I'm gonna let the sun shine in today. And I will leave my windows open so that I can hear the sound of people talking and the wind blowing in the trees. Oh, I will open up my eyes so I can see the light. Oh, and I'll try to spread my wings so I can fly. Oh, and the darkness starts to fade. Feels like things are gonna go my way. I'm gonna let the sun shine in the day. I'm gonna let the past be filled with smoke, and I will try to fix what has been broken, and take this weight off my shoulders, 'cause I know yesterday ain't coming back. I'm gonna let the past stay in the cold. I will listen to the ocean, let its unsaid words be spoken, and I'll let my mind be carried by the waves. Oh, I will open up my eyes so I can see the light. Oh, and I'll try to spread my wings so I can fly.
Alright, so the pork is in the oven, 400 degrees. It's going to bake in there for about 20 minutes with some, I think it's broccoli that I was roasting on this night. So I'm just reusing the same skillet that I cooked the pork in. I threw in some thinly sliced onion and some thinly sliced mushrooms that I had just hanging out in my fridge waiting to be used. I saw them and thought, perfect time for this. We're going to saute these with just a little bit of oil until they're cooked through. The mushrooms are nice and soft. The onions are pretty much clear. And then we're going to make this into a gravy. So once these have cooked to our, I don't know what we're desiring here, when they've cooked down quite a bit, we're going to add in, for me, a tablespoon of bacon grease. If you don't have that, just toss in some butter. That'll be perfectly good. I just happen to have bacon grease. Perfect time to use it. I'm going to let that melt down for just a minute, and we're going to add in a little bit of minced garlic, probably about 1 clove. We've got onion in here. We don't need a ton of garlic. Just that little extra boost of flavor is going to be beautiful. We're going to cook this for just a minute or so that the garlic has a chance to heat through and just kind of disperse the flavor throughout everything, because you know those mushrooms are soaking that flavor right up. And then we're going to add in a couple of tablespoons of flour to make a roux. You know, a roux is supposed to be equal amounts of fat, which would be the bacon grease or butter or oil, to your flour. So I'm just kind of guesstimating at about 2 tablespoons because I added a tablespoon of bacon grease and then I also added some oil to begin with. I'm also going to add in a little bit of that beef-based powder there because I want beef broth and I don't have any. We're going to make our own. And we're going to let that all cook for just a minute so that flour taste cooks out. If you don't give it a chance to do that, you can really taste the flour, and that is not what we want. Then we're gonna add in a little bit of fresh cracked black pepper because that's just the perfect complement to this dish. Then I'm gonna slowly add in 2 cups of water. I say slowly because I don't want lumps and clumps. This is not something I can whisk the clumps out of because I have so many ingredients in here. So we're just gonna very slowly add in 2 cups of water. Then we're gonna add in about a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. And we're gonna let this simmer on the stove top. Now as it simmers, it will definitely thicken up and become a nice, beautiful gravy consistency, which is what we are looking for. Essentially, it's just a mushroom onion gravy. We're gonna use this to top our pork tenderloin medallions that are roasting in the oven, and it's gonna be so, so good. I served this dish with some roasted broccoli. That's frozen broccoli that I roasted in the oven. Turned out amazing. And of course, just some bread that I sliced up. It's the everything bread from Walmart. I sliced it up, put some butter on it, and baked it in the oven for a little bit. So, so good. All right, it's time for a whole roasted chicken. I was looking for comfort food, and this definitely fits the bill. I've had this chicken hanging out in my deep freeze for a couple months now. It is time to use him. You can season this however you choose. I'm using Badia Complete and some poultry seasoning just because it's simple, it's easy, and it tastes great. You could use any seasoning you want, barbecue seasoning, whatever. It's up to you, whatever your family likes. For me, I had this, it's easy, and we like this. Just make sure the seasoning's rubbed all over the skin of this chicken. We're not doing any kind of butter or anything like that because we're gonna cook this in our slow cooker. I have a Ninja Foodi which has a rack. If you have a traditional crock pot, ball up 4 pieces of aluminum foil and set the chicken on the aluminum foil. All you're looking to do is keep it out of all the liquids that are gonna accumulate in the bottom of the pan. Ideally, put it in breast side down and flip it over halfway through. For me, it was grocery day and I forgot to flip it, so it stayed breast side down the entire time. If you flip it, it gets a much more even browning all over the skin. Those are the drippings left from all the chicken. I am simply going to go ahead and add in whatever seasonings you want. I chose onion powder, definitely some cracked black pepper, a little bit of salt, and some dried parsley. Tasted amazing. We're going to thicken it with a cornstarch water mix, just equal parts of cornstarch and water. I did about 2 tablespoons of each, poured it in, and just let it simmer in my Ninja Foodi here. If you're in a slow cooker, this is going to take about half an hour, so give yourself plenty of time. Also, if you're in a slow cooker, while this is doing its thing for 30 minutes, pop your whole chicken in an oven at 400 degrees so the skin will brown. My Ninja Foodi has an air fryer built in, so I just did it in there. You're going to need to put it in the oven if you're not using a Ninja Foodi. You don't have to. The skin will still have a nice color to it, but it won't be that beautiful brown. All right, so time to dice up this, or not dice, time to take apart the chicken. It was just falling apart tender, really. I don't know why I had a knife. I didn't really need it. Everything just came right off. So basically I just pulled the bones out and threw them away and just kind of portioned this out for everyone. This was more than enough for one night. I did have leftover chicken. Now, if you are into using every bit of this, save your bones and all that kind of stuff, it's going to make a beautiful chicken stock. You can mix it with, your leftover bits of carrot and celery and onion, the skins, all that kind of stuff, and make yourself a beautiful, beautiful stock. Totally up to you if you want to do that. I did not. I just pulled the bones right out. As you can see, they literally just come right out, and threw them away. I probably could have made stock, but I've tried it before and I never remember to actually, I put everything in a bag in the freezer and never remember to actually make the stock. So I'm not even going to kid myself and say I'll do it because I will totally forget, which is what I've done in the past. So the chicken right there, as you can see, fall apart tender, so juicy, so delicious. This is such an easy method for cooking a whole roasted chicken. I have done it in a traditional crock pot a million times. I didn't always brown it in the oven either. Turns out beautifully. Just make sure you have it on foil balls so it's not sitting in that liquid. That just makes it soggy. That part's not great, but the rest of it, fantastic. You're gonna love this if you love the rotisserie chickens at the grocery store. And I just kind of, because it was falling apart, just served it in little pieces with the gravy on top. I made some pastaroni chicken flavor on the side, and of course my green beans, you guys have seen those before on my channel. This was so good. It's just comfort food at its best, So this is an easy recipe, 3 ingredient cookies. I've been making these for a couple of years. I originally found the recipe on Pinterest. It's so simple. Box of cake mix, any flavor, it's up to you. I'm using lemon. That's what the original recipe called for. And I gotta tell you, I've tried other flavors. It's definitely my favorite. Lemon just pops. It's amazing. It is so good and so bright and vibrant and fresh. But if you don't like lemon, you want strawberry, you want chocolate, you want vanilla, totally up to you. Do your thing. It's gonna, let's see, you're gonna need 1 egg. Go ahead and scramble it and then add your cake mix to it. Then we're gonna use 1 small container of Cool Whip. Any brand of Cool Whip, doesn't matter. I think the original recipe said 2 cups. I don't measure it. I've just used 1 small container as long as I can remember, and it's perfect. The only challenge you're gonna have with this is getting the cake mix mixed into the Cool Whip. It is a little difficult to mix that really powdery cake mix with Cool Whip. It's gonna take a few minutes. Make sure you're scraping the bottom of the bowl the whole bit, but it will come together. It's gonna be a really funny texture, one that you don't typically see with cookies, but just trust me on this, it's gonna be so good. I mixed and mixed and mixed. It did take some time. There's gonna be lumps, there's gonna be clumps. Don't worry about it. When everything bakes together, it's beautiful. It adds a little texture. It tastes amazing. These are the best cookies, guys. They're so good. Just trust me on these. Some people roll them in powdered sugar before they bake them. I don't do that. I think it's way too sweet. I think they're fine on their own. Just 3 ingredients. Use a cookie scoop. Put them on a parchment paper lined tray. Trust me on this one. This is some really sticky stuff. If you don't line it, there's a good chance your cookies are going to stick. Even if you spray the pan, just use the parchment paper. I used a cookie scoop and just kind of put little balls all along my cookie sheet, and they bake down into beautiful little circles. This stuff is so good. That makes a lot, by the way. That's a big sheet pan there, and I filled it 1.5 times. I want to say it was like 30 something cookies. It's a lot of cookies. So be prepared to eat a lot of cookies. Tell your family they need to eat a lot of cookies. If you were using the vanilla, I also don't see why you couldn't throw in some chocolate chips, just so you know. If you wanted some extra texture in there, I bet that would be beautiful. I've never tried it, but just thinking about it right now, I'm thinking that would probably work really well. So if you're interested in trying it, give it a shot. Let me know how it turns out. I'm out of cake mix right now, so I can't try it for you. But these lemon cookies are just so amazing. You guys are gonna love them. Bake them at 350 for 12 to 15 minutes. Check them at 12. They're probably done, but for some people, might need an extra couple of minutes. The last meal of the week is some ribs. I took some beef chuck ribs, really cheap cut of ribs, seasoned them with some Cooper's Old Time Pit barbecue seasoning, covered them in foil, baked them at 200 degrees for 4.5 hours. Then I just took the foil off and popped them in a 400-degree oven popped them under the broiler for about 5 to 7 minutes, and they made beautiful crusty ribs. So amazing, falling off the bone, absolutely delicious. I also diced up some sweet potato, which you see there, put some oil on it, some salt, pepper, garlic powder, roasted it at 400 degrees for about 30 minutes. Absolutely fantastic. You guys have seen me make ribs before, so this is really nothing new to my channel. But this is one of the meals I made this week, and they were so amazing. So definitely give some homemade ribs a shot. I tried them in the smoker, but I think I like them better in the oven. Like I said, low and slow for like 4 to 5 hours, and then pop them under the broiler, and you've got beautiful, beautiful ribs. Alright guys, so that's it for this week's What's for Dinner video. If you enjoyed this, make sure you're clicking all the buttons, the subscribe button, all of it, so you can keep up with all of my content. Click that like button, give it a big thumbs up, because it totally helps out me and my channel. I appreciate it so much when you guys do that. If you have any questions or anything like that, hit me up down below in the comments. I love reading you guys' comments. It's so much fun. Anyway, I hope you guys all have a fantastic week. I will see you Wednesday with another video.